Was having a happy hump day to you and yours. Thanks for joining us as always. Before we get into Drake Maye, let's start with some news from earlier today. Drake Maye met with the media. Then we saw what happened at practice. So let's start with Christian Barmore. Some possibly great news about Barmore. Drake Maye told the media today that Barmore could actually practice this week. Doesn't mean he's going to play. He could practice for a couple of weeks and then get in. But the fact that Barmore is possible to be out there practicing this week tells us that he has recovered from the blood clots, which is fantastic news personally for the young man, his health. So it seems like the blood clots have been figured out and he is nearing a return to the practice field. He did not practice today, but again, Mayo said that he could practice this week. Cole Strange, not ready yet. Mayo said that Barmore is ahead of Strange. Mike Reese, going back a week or two ago, wrote that Strange was reaching the home stretch for his rehab, so it sounds like he's getting closer, but Strange is not ready to hit the practice field just yet. Meanwhile, Mayo told the media that the expectation is that the offensive line will start the same five this week, which is great news. If they can get through the week of practice healthy, we can expect that same starting five that we saw last week, which means continuity, which makes sense, and again, is very good news. Finally, we see this offensive line start to really figure itself out as to who's playing where and why they're playing there. One more note. Kyle Duggar back at practice today. That is good news. So Duggar was back out on the practice field. Sounds like he's getting close. He's missed the last couple games. Yannick Ngakoue, who was picked up late last week, he was out there on the practice field. So Ngakoue is getting used to the Patriots organization. And a couple of DNPs, Sione Takitaki hurt his hamstring last weekend. He continues to battle injuries all year long, which is unfortunate, because Takitaki was very solid on Sunday, and he could help this linebacker core. But again, he's out there. He gets hurt. Hamstring injury. Takitaki did not practice. Isaiah Bolden did not practice. Marcellus Dial did not practice. And one that we have to make sure we pay close attention to is Dietrich Wise. He did not practice today. So Wise, Dial, Bolden, Takitaki did not practice. Duggar back. Ngakoue out there. Christian Barmore getting very close to hitting the practice field. All right. It's been 5 weeks of Drake Maye as your quarterback one. How much impact has Drake truly had on this offense? How much of a difference has he made? Evan Lazar tweeted out a bunch of numbers. And it's interesting when you look at Brissett and how many dropbacks he's had this year. And when you look at Maye and his dropbacks, there's one single dropback that separates them, 186 to 185. So these numbers, the comparison makes a ton of sense because we're talking about, for all intents and purposes, the same amount of dropbacks in this Alex Van Pelt offense. So what kind of difference has Drake Maye actually made? I know it's fun watching him. It's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of hope about Maye and his future. He obviously has had a number of splash plays, but statistically, how much of an impact has he truly made on this offense? Let's start with this. This offense has been more explosive with Maye than it was with Brissett. The eye test tells us that, but the numbers also tell us that. Yards per attempt. Drake Maye, 6.4 yards per attempt. So almost 6.5 yards per attempt from Drake Maye. You look at Jacoby Brissett, 5.2 yards per attempt. That might not sound like a big difference, 6.4 to 5.2. It is a big difference. Trust me when I tell you. When you're talking about over a yard per attempt, that is a big difference as far as what the offense is trying to do. And what it tells us is what we see. Drake Maye throws the football downfield more often than Brissett. Now we see Maye, he takes those chances, the old gunslinger, right? He takes those chances downfield that Brissett did not want to take. Brissett was uncomfortable making certain throws downfield. It's almost as if he needed somebody wide open to make a throw. He needed to see it to make that throw. So more downfield throws, more explosivity from this passing game with Drake Maye than with Brissett. The points per game. Drake Maye in the game, the Patriots averaging 18.8 points per game. So almost 19 points per game. If you go back to the beginning of the year, if you go back to some of the shows I did on 98.5 during the offseason, I had mentioned that I would expect the Patriots to hover around at least 20 points per game. And they've been there. They're getting there with Maye. They're at 18.8. By the end of the year, I would not be surprised if this Patriots offense with Maye as quarterback is averaging 20, 21 points a game, which is a significant leap from what we've seen the last 2 years. And as a matter of fact, if you look at Jacoby Brissett, he really matches, he mirrors what we've seen the last couple of years from this offense, 13 points a game with Brissett as your quarterback. So almost, a full touchdown difference with Maye than with Brissett. Touchdown percentage, 4.7 versus 1.3, which is a big-time difference again. So more explosivity, more scoring, more chances to score. That's what you're getting with Drake Maye. The cool thing about Maye that stands out to me is he has elevated the talent around him. I don't think you can say that about Brissett. Brissett's not that kind of quarterback. He's not going to elevate guys around him. But Maye, he has done that so far. And the reason why I say that is he does it at a higher level than Brissett. When you look at expected points added, the EPA, Drake Maye's at negative 0.02. Brissett was at negative 0.19. So Drake is almost getting you exactly what you expect with a normal football team. And as we know, there have been a lot of issues with this team offensively. So if you look at guys like Kayshon Boutte, for example, I don't think Kayshon Boutte makes the step that he has made over the past couple of weeks if Brissett's the quarterback. I don't think Jacoby Brissett throws that football last week late in the first half, that 23-yard gain downfield. That's a tough throw. That route was covered pretty well. I don't think Brissett makes that throw, but Drake Maye, he trusts Kayshon Boutte. He has the talent to make that throw. He has the willingness to make that throw. So not only do you look at the quarterback in that situation, you look at the receiver taking a step forward. Boutte is a different wide receiver right now with Maye than he was with Brissett, and certainly what he was last year with Mac Jones. The tight ends are also improving with Maye at quarterback. Hunter Henry has improved. Austin Hooper coming off of his biggest game so far as a Patriot. So you start to see some of these guys around Maye getting better. He's elevating some of this talent. And you can only hope that Maye will also help Jalen Polk elevate over the next few weeks. So by the end of the year, Polk doesn't look like an absolute bust. The downside to Maye is stuff that we talked about before the season, stuff that we talked about before the draft, during the draft, the last, 7 months. The stuff with Maye that concerns you is that he's more mistake prone. We should expect that. Drake Maye's interception rate compared to Jacoby Brissett is astronomical. Drake Maye's interception rate is 3.4%. Jacoby was 0.6%. So, that's just a huge difference. Now, that's some of what you get, right? Jacoby played ultra conservative. He was ultra safe. Drake Maye is that gunslinger. He's the young guy. He's still kind of growing into his role as an NFL quarterback. You have to expect more mistakes from Drake, and he's going to take more chances, which also leads to more mistakes from the rookie quarterback. Back to the good side, Drake Maye, no doubt, hands down, has helped this offensive line. The pressure rate with Drake Maye is 34.4%. Brissett was at 48.1%. The sack rate, 7.5 to 9.7. Now, this is not all Drake Maye, of course. The offensive line has built some continuity up front. Fadarian Lowe, who was supposed to be the starting left tackle for this team, has been out there the last few weeks, hasn't gotten injured. And so you have a little bit more talent up front. I'm not saying it's a great offensive line, but you have more talent up front than what Brissett was dealing with most of the time. So that plays a role, more continuity, more talent. Michael Onwenu has mostly been at right guard with Drake Maye. They made that change with Jacobs at right tackle. So you're starting to figure out the pieces of the puzzle up front. So that has helped the pressure numbers. but Maye's ability to move around, extend plays, all of that stuff, his athleticism, which is much better than Jacoby Brissett's, that has made an impact on this pass protection and has helped the numbers of this offensive line. It's only 5 games. We have a lot to evaluate. We need more reps to watch of Drake Maye. He needs more reps to figure out what defenses are doing. That's why I think the game against Chicago was big, because they play almost 80% of the time in zone coverage. That was something that Maye needed to see, needed to understand, needed to react to. So I think last week was a big step in Drake's progression, even though you could argue it was his worst game since he has started for the Patriots. He was not great, but it's a learning process. And he learned an awful lot by facing that tough Chicago pass defense last week. So still a lot to evaluate. We need to see more of Maye. He needs more reps. We also have to remember that up until last weekend, Maye has had almost 0 run game, which helps every quarterback. So hopefully the Patriots find some things they can do on the ground, and that will help Maye. Promising start. It's obvious that Maye has intangibles in spades, right? We talk about leadership. We talk about his on-the-field comportment, how he handles the sidelines. The Patriots had Drake Maye mic'd up for that Chicago game. You can check it out on YouTube or Twitter. It's a fun video. So there's no doubt about his intangibles, his maturity, his leadership, all of that. Now the Patriots have to surround him in the right way, and they have to make sure that he continues to develop. But the numbers tell us, just like we see, the numbers tell us that Drake Maye has impacted this offense, and this offense has been better, and in some cases much better with Maye than it was with Jacoby Brissett. All right, I still have more to talk about. The Patriots can get more out of Drake Maye, and I want to talk about something philosophically that's been discussed over the past couple of weeks. Should the Patriots design runs for Drake Maye, or should they not design runs for Drake Maye? I want to dig into that. Also, I want to talk about Alex Van Pelt on today's show, because earlier today, there were multiple Patriots who talked about Alex Van Pelt, the impact he has had on the offense and what they think of him as an offensive coordinator. Drake Maye had something very interesting to say about Van Pelt. So I want to get into Van Pelt and his future and how it ties in with the quarterback position. But first, don't forget, hit that thumbs up. Give us that like. All the likes helps us. That's how we beat this YouTube algorithm. So don't forget to like this podcast as you watch it. Don't forget to throw a comment in. I saw somebody say that the comment section is a little bit quiet. Anonymous says, "We are a quiet bunch today. Stop being quiet. What do you like about Drake Maye so far? What concerns you about Drake Maye? How do you feel about Drake Maye now after 5 starts versus how you felt about him when they drafted him back in late April?" Throw a comment in. The likes in the comments, they help us beat the algorithm. And most importantly, subscribing also helps build this community. We're still about 100 short. We're kind of crawling towards Thanksgiving here. If you're new to the program, subscribe, click that notify bell. We're trying to hit 5,000 subscribers by Thanksgiving. And we've had, some of those numbers slow down over the last week or two. So let's build this back up on a hump day, shall we? Let's build it back up. I appreciate you. All right. How can the Patriots get more out of Drake Maye? Alex Van Pelt and the Patriots coaching staff, they have said, we are not going to design runs for Maye this season. And I think that's a mistake. I disagree with not designing runs for Maye. I would even say I vehemently disagree with the idea of not designing runs for Drake Maye. I don't think you have to call 10 designed runs for Maye. I'm not saying run Maye into the ground. I don't want to see a bunch of designed runs, but I absolutely believe that throwing 3 to 4 designed runs out there onto the field with Maye is a great idea. I don't want 10 or 11 of them, but if you tell me you pick your spots and 3 or 4 times in a game, you have some kind of designed run for Maye, I think it's a fantastic idea. And I think Alex Van Pelt should be doing that. And I think the Patriots staff should support that, including Drake Maye. I absolutely believe it. I mean, can we just acknowledge one thing here? May scrambling around, sometimes like a chicken with his head cut off, is much more dangerous than designed runs. When May breaks out of the pocket and he starts running downfield, guys can hit him from everywhere. We've seen this, right? We saw it with the concussion hit. You can get hit from behind, you can get hit from the side. You're not always sure of where the danger is coming from. When you're scrambling, when you're running for a first down, anything can happen. A designed run, you plan for where you're going to go, right? You plan on the designed run. If you time it well, then the quarterback should not be in any kind of danger or much danger at all. It is much more dangerous for a quarterback to be scrambling and running around with no plan than a designed run with a purpose. You are calling that designed run for a reason. Maybe you think the defense is weak in the red zone against designed runs. Maybe you think the linebacker play is not great. Maybe you think the eyes get all messed up on the defense. So I'm not saying overwhelm the world with Drake Maye designed runs, but fitting in 3 or 4 per game, I think makes all the sense in the world. It's not any more dangerous than what we're seeing Drake Maye do on a weekly basis anyway. And when you call designed runs for the quarterback, it opens up the run game because the defense now has to deal with multiple things, right? Multiple looks, multiple possibilities. When you have a designed run with your quarterback, this can confuse the defense. It makes it more challenging for the front seven and their run fits and to figure out what they want to do and how they want to do it. It just opens up the run game. And as we know, even last week, the run game was much better, especially on early downs. First down run game was terrific for the Patriots. But overall, they were still under 4 yards per carry last week. If you want to have a dynamic run game, if you want to have a good to very good run game, one way you can get there is by designing runs for May, because it will open up other opportunities within the run game in the big picture. Just put it this way. If you're a defensive coordinator and you're game planning for the Patriots, adding that wrinkle, if the Patriots just embraced the idea of adding that wrinkle of designed runs from May, it puts so much more on the plate of the opposition's defensive coordinator, because now they have another part of an offense that they have to be concerned with. And so to me, especially when you don't have explosive players all over the field, putting more on the plate of the opposing defensive coordinator makes a lot of sense. At least to me, it does. Put more on that guy's plate. Have him looking at more film, even if he has to spend 35, 40 minutes on May designed runs during the work week. That's 35 to 40 minutes less work he has or has time to look at other things that he has to worry about with this Patriots offense. Final thing for me, as far as designed runs for May and why I think the Patriots should embrace this and not run away from it like we've heard they're doing, it is tremendously effective in the red zone. We saw it in the preseason, right? That preseason where Drake had the touchdown on the read option and he kept it. He came around the corner, easy touchdown, right? When you're in the red zone, when you're like at the 5-yard line or inside the 5-yard line, designed runs with your quarterback, especially when that quarterback is 6'4", over 200 pounds. It's so effective. It's so effective. And it allows you to keep other things in your back pocket for later in the game. When you're in the red zone, the pass game is condensed. Everything is tight, right? Everything is in a tight area. Design runs for Drake Maye would open some things up for you offensively in the red zone. It's all about deception. It's all about moving the defense's eyes. It's all about opening up the field. So I think the Patriots could get even more out of Maye and get even more out of this offense right now if they decided to tell themselves as a staff, we're going to call some designed runs for Drake Maye. We're going to put that element into the offense. I think it would help them. All right. Going to get to Alex Van Pelt in a moment. Number of interesting comments at Gillette today about the offensive coordinator. Get to that in a second. Don't forget, Spotify, Apple Pods, friends, to rate and review this podcast and to slide over to the YouTube channel to click that thumbs up and throw a comment in and subscribe. If you like what I do here about the Patriots, I also have a Patreon page you can check out, patreon.com/Nick Cattles. It's $5 a month. Today, I released an exclusive podcast to those Patreon members. We talked about the Juan Soto Red Sox rumors, those reports coming out. We talked about a fun Belichick Patriots hypothetical. I gave you my thoughts on Jaylen Brown versus Giannis and what happened between those two guys. I talked about Jim Montgomery. Did the Bruins save Jim Montgomery's job last night with that third period? We have a bunch of exclusive content on that Patreon page. Again, it's $5 a month, $1.25 a week. You can check it out, patreon.com/Nick Cattles, Cattles. Help support the program. All right. One last topic. Alex Van Pelt's standing in New England. You never know about offensive coordinators. I said that when the Patriots were searching for an offensive coordinator. There's a lot of things that we look at. We say, oh, in theory, that guy could be a really good offensive coordinator. That guy might be a great OC. I was a fan of the idea of Shane Waldron, but you never really know how it's going to play out when guys are just ideas. It's like having a team on paper. Shane Waldron had everything you wanted, right? He coached under Sean McVay. He was with Seattle when Geno Smith recovered and became an actual NFL quarterback. He had coached here in New England before, so he had a bunch of experience. He had experience with different quarterbacks. He was linked with the great Sean McVay. Everything told you that Shane Waldron should be a pretty good offensive coordinator. He was a disaster in Chicago. We saw it on Sunday. A disaster. That offense was a mess. Earlier this week, Waldron got fired. Luke Getsy was another name. Now, I wasn't big on Luke Getsy because I saw Luke Getsy as the Chicago offensive coordinator before. Funny how that works, right? The offensive coordinator fired in Chicago earlier this week. The former Chicago offensive coordinator also fired. That was last week from Vegas. I was not a big fan of Getsy. I didn't believe in Getsy, so I'm not too surprised that he's done. Clint Kubiak in New Orleans got off to a great start. He's had some big-time ups and downs with the Saints. They've had some injuries, but Clint Kubiak, the first 2 weeks, everybody was talking about him. Then the Saints offense took a step back. You never really know. Liam Cohen in Tampa, born in Warwick, Rhode Island. Good old Liam Cohen. He's done a tremendous job. How many people were talking about Liam Cohen when he was hired by Tampa? Not a lot of people were talking about him. He's been really good, especially considering he hasn't had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin the last 2 weeks. So you never really know until these guys actually have the job. Van Pelt, his play calling has been rocky. It's been up and down. I think some of that could be expected because he's inexperienced. We talked about it all offseason, all preseason, all early season. One year he had as a play caller, and that was as OC for the Buffalo Bills in 2009, and he was not even supposed to be the offensive coordinator that year. It was thrown onto his lap. So, and the talent wasn't great in Buffalo. So he is overall inexperienced as a play caller week to week and in game. So some of the early stuff that we saw could be expected. What irritated me the most were the obvious things. And I do think that Van Pelt has shown some improvement in those obvious categories, such as pass protection, helping out his tackles. The Patriots have done that more often. They've done a better job of that. So he's improved there. They have improved aside from last week, but I think this is more about Chicago's red zone defense, which was one of the best red zone defenses in the NFL coming into that game. Before last week, Van Pelt in this offense, especially with Drake Maye, they have steadily improved in the red zone. So that's a good improvement. We saw Van Pelt sprinkle in some creativity last weekend. We've seen him utilize a 2 tight end set. And he really went to the tight end usage this past weekend against Chicago, and it was a smart game plan, and it worked. I think AVP's play sequencing has been much better. And you can go check out CLNS with Mike Cadlick and Taylor Kyles. They do a great job. Check out their pod, I think from Monday it was, where Taylor Kyles, he goes through a lot of the sequencing of AVP and his play calling the last couple of weeks. And when you start to see what Van Pelt is putting together and how he sequences plays, it's making more sense. Is he great? No. Has he been very good? No. Do I still have questions? Absolutely. Has he been better? He has been better. And I say it all the time. If I'm going to criticize coaches when they deserve to be criticized, I'm going to give them credit when they deserve to get that credit. And so when you look at Van Pelt, he has been getting better. But the question is, inevitably, does he get good enough to believe in beyond 2024? And this is a very layered conversation. It's not as easy as what you see week to week just on the field and the play calling. There's a lot that goes into this. Because if you want to get rid of Alex Van Pelt, if he doesn't improve enough, if you don't see enough, and if you want him out after this season, say you're done with Van Pelt, you have to consider Drake Maye's development. You have to consider the relationship between Drake Maye and Van Pelt. Because if the most important thing about this team right now is the development of Maye, and Van Pelt is a big deal in that area, then you have to think deeply into whether or not is Van Pelt going to get better. If we give him another year, will he show even more improvement? If the offensive line is better next year, if we get, a top receiver in this offense, what will that do for Van Pelt? You have to make the assessment as the Patriots that Van Pelt will not improve in 2025 to the point of taking Drake Maye's play caller and coach away from him. That's the balance here. Not a zero-sum game. You got to figure out how much that will impact Maye. Greg Bedard, my buddy, Greg says that he doesn't think Drake Maye's on-field play has improved as much as some say. He doesn't believe that Maye's footwork is much better than it was in the preseason or during camp. Others disagree. Others say that they see that improvement and they believe that Maye has improved. Dan Orlovsky put out a video today praising Drake Maye. And so how much of the belief and trust in that facility at Gillette Stadium in Alex Van Pelt, how much does that play a role? Gerard Mayo said this earlier today. This is from Phil Perry. Quote, there's no one in this organization that deserves more credit as far as what Drake has been able to do on the football field than Alex Van Pelt, unquote. So Gerard says Van Pelt's been the guy. If you think Drake Maye has improved and we think he's improved, we think he's developed, there's nobody in this building that deserves more credit than Van Pelt for that improvement. The players. So the head coach, a little bit of a vote of confidence for Van Pelt. How about the players? Are you comfortable with firing Drake Maye? With firing Alex Van Pelt. We're not firing Drake Maye. Are you comfortable firing Alex Van Pelt after this season when you hear Drake Maye say today, quote, you love playing for an offensive coordinator like Alex Van Pelt, unquote? Do you feel a little less settled on that opinion of firing Van Pelt when Drake Maye also says that Van Pelt has, quote, been huge, just a confidence booster for the quarterback. He's positive, but he'll also coach you hard, unquote. Are you sure you want to fire Van Pelt at the end of the year? If somebody like Hunter Henry said today what he said about Van Pelt, which was, quote, I love his scheme. I love his game planning. I love his football mind, unquote. The future of your franchise, Drake Maye, is out there pumping the tires of Van Pelt. Hunter Henry, who is a captain for this team and has played in the NFL for a long time, has dealt with multiple play callers over his years, is telling you that he thinks the scheme is great. He loves Van Pelt's game planning. He loves Van Pelt's football mind. So the players in that locker room believe in Van Pelt. Now, it doesn't mean you have to keep him, but I do think it's part of the assessment. It's part of this evaluation. It's part of the decision that you have to make. If this offense isn't necessarily great, how much of that was on Alex Van Pelt? Can he get better in 2025? What do the guys in the room believe? I mean, you see Chicago, you hear some of those guys in Chicago the past couple weeks. They've been throwing Shane Waldron under the bus. The players know. That's not happening here. Every time a Patriots asked about Van Pelt, they're complimentary. Now, yes, I don't expect Patriots to go out there publicly and throw Van Pelt under the bus, but praising Van Pelt, that does matter. When Hunter Henry, who I respect and appreciate as a football player, he's had a hell of a year, all things considered. When he's out there and he's not just saying, oh, I like AVP, he's saying that, no, I love his scheme, I love his game planning, and I love his football mind. When Henry is going that far to tell you what he thinks of Van Pelt, that has to be part of the assessment. That has to be part of your decision-making process when you're trying to figure out if Van Pelt is going to be the guy. You also have to think about changing offensive coordinators. What kind of impact will that have on Maye? Chicago's going through that right now. And we've seen it with Mac Jones in past years. What you don't want is the offensive coordinator turnstile. You want Maye to feel comfortable. You want him to work with somebody that he trusts. You want him to work with somebody that he believes in. And if he feels comfortable with Van Pelt and he's developing well with Van Pelt, there is risk. There is big time risk of giving Van Pelt his walking papers if you're not happy by the end of the season with what he's done, and then giving Drake Maye somebody different. There is risk there. When you change offensive coordinators, it's also going to impact your offensive roster, because is that offensive coordinator going to bring in a completely different system? And how much do you have to change of the roster if you decide to say goodbye to Alex Van Pelt? Again, none of this is me telling you that Van Pelt should be here for the next 2, 3, 4 years. None of it. But this is the stuff that gets overlooked because people are so wrapped up into fantasy football and playing Madden. Relationships matter. Development matters. And even though it might not be the greatest thing ever on the field offensively with Van Pelt, is it better to have Van Pelt here for the development of your quarterback and the development of these young players? Is it best to have him and his personality in the room right now, even if we admit it's not the greatest thing we've seen out there on the field? These are the things you have to balance. It's not as easy as people think. I think it's possible that Van Pelt is better next year, right? We've seen some improvement. Now, again, if he falls back, if we don't see that improvement continue, then we have the conversation at the end of the year and we say, is he in or is he out? But another part of the process that everybody at Gillette has to go through is, will he be better in 2025 if we have T. Higgins? Will he be better in 2025 if we draft a left tackle and swing Vidarian Lowe to the right side? Or maybe Caden Wallace is your right tackle and Lowe is your swing tackle. What if we have a legitimate offensive line next year with a true number one receiver? How much does that change Van Pelt's ability to call plays? Like Shane Waldron, yeah, the offensive line has been bad. But Shane Waldron, you've got Roma Dunze, you've got Keenan Allen, you've got DJ Moore, you've got DeAndre Swift, you've got Cole Kmet, you've got Caleb Williams. That's a different situation out there. Van Pelt doesn't have that artillery. I'm not excusing everything. It's just how much has that impacted him? This past week against Chicago, right? They had some run game. The offense was better. Is that a coincidence? No. They ran the football better on early downs, which made third downs more manageable. So they put some yards up and, they moved the ball from time to time against one of the better pass defenses that they're going to play all year. So how do these other things impact Van Pelt's performance? You would love an offensive coordinator to be able to scheme by all the problems, but maybe AVP is not good enough to scheme around all of the problems. But maybe he's good enough when you have the pieces together where you keep Drake Maye happy, you keep him comfortable, you keep his guy in the room with him, and then with better talent and Drake Maye elevating that talent and Drake Maye getting better, then maybe Van Pelt's better. I'm not there yet with Van Pelt. I want to see how it unfolds. But I'm also not ready to fire him yet because I do think you've seen some improvements. And I want to see how this develops throughout the rest of the year. If that offensive line can keep that continuity, how does it develop? What happens? Edward is, I think, just lambasting Van Pelt, which is cool. Everybody has their opinions, but this stuff is weak. The whole he's been fired 8 times. Look, a lot of things happen, okay? And when coaches move, head coaches move, teams make decisions, he could be a scapegoat. Do you think he was fired in Cleveland because he was the reason why Cleveland wasn't good? Have you seen Cleveland this year? Van Pelt on Cleveland's staff, Cleveland's offense was a hell of a lot better last year, and they had 5 different starting quarterbacks. So I think, and that to me is just, he's been fired 8 times. He's been in different places. Well, did he want to leave and go somewhere else? Did he want to work with another coaching staff? We can't have it both ways. You can't kill Gerard Mayo because he's never coached anywhere else, but then say, oh, well, AVP's been a bunch of places. Maybe some of that was his own opinion, and maybe some of that was his own desire to see something different. Maybe it was, again, a coaching change at the top, and the staff was fired, and it had nothing to do with Van Pelt. Maybe it was just like last year when Van Pelt was a scapegoat for bad ownership and a terrible decision to bring Deshaun Watson in. So we need context with that. The whole he was fired, I don't really pay that much mind, honestly. Let's jump to some super chats. Hump Day super chat for Nick. Thank you, Chris Chapman, $9.99. Should just call it a $10 super chat. Thank you for the $10 super chat, Chris. I'll throw in the extra penny. I appreciate your support, my man. Anonymous jumps in with a $5 super chat. Thank you for the 5, Anonymous. Another Hump Day chat. Thank you. Appreciate you. And then Terry jumps in with a $20 super chat. Thanks for the great content as always, Nick. Well, thank you, Terry. I try to put the best content I can put out there for everyone. And I try to look a little bit deeper and a little bit differently at things. And this conversation about Alex Van Pelt is one of those things. Because it goes beyond just, oh, I hated that 3rd down play call. Especially when you have a young team, especially when you're dealing with a young franchise quarterback in Drake Maye and trying to develop him the right way. Just my 2 cents. All right. I appreciate every single one of you. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you enjoy what we do. Let's beat that algorithm. Hit that thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up. Throw a comment in as well. Always love the comments. I check out a lot of them. I can't always respond to them. It depends on what's going on. But I do check out a lot of those comments. So don't forget to throw a comment in and subscribe. Trying to hit 5,000 subscribers by Turkey Day. The subscriptions have slowed down a little bit the past week or two. So let's drive those babies. Let's get going here with some subscriptions. Try to get to 5,000 by Thanksgiving. We're a little under 100 away from doing that. Click that notify bell so you know when we're going live. And rate and review at Spotify and Apple Pods. Appreciate you. We're back tomorrow night, my NFL podcast, Crafts and Kickoffs, tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then Friday, we will have your Rams-Patriots preview at 3 o'clock right here on YouTube.